pretty sure this is how it starts. Next week, that's going to be the saxophones.
Yeah.
So, welcome to Whisky and Wifi. We're just two guys talking about politics.
And other worldly events that we really have
We have some idea about. Danny, we're smart, intelligent people.
I completely disagree, but that's why I love Derek, because he still loves me even when we completely disagree.
And we're drinking whiskey, so it's easy to, get through all the other stuff. What are we drinking today here, Danny?
Don't get used to it, but we're drinking a little Gentleman Jack.
Yeah, christening the ship with some Gentleman's Jack.
Which, of course, is one of our sponsors, because they sent us 3 cases.
They're probably going to give us a cease and desist order the first time this airs. It's like, please do not mention this again.
Gentlemen,
they'll figure it out, even if we do have to bleep it. But
Derek, don't kid yourself. No one is listening to this.
Shut up, Danny. We are not delusional. We are passionate Americans worried about this country.
America!
And I just banged on my microphone, I think. But we'll keep going with it. So, let's tell them what we're trying to do. What are we trying to do here? What's our vision, Danny?
Well, other than slowly suck each other off.
There you have it, everybody. This is 2 minutes in, and we're already sucking each other off. Just so you know.
No, I think the idea was just to talk about real issues.
Shut up! We also have dogs in the studio.
Will not be permanent fixtures. And we might have another guest to our studio, Daniela.
I love dogs.
But, well, we just want to talk about real issues and kind of eliminate the filter, because it seems like so often in
We
life...
need a filter right now for the dog.
We need an audio filter. Or a gun. Small caliber pistol. I mean, no, I do not agree with that. I love animals.
He's worried you people, y'all two of you, are going to write him nasty letters about
Please
killing
do.
dogs.
If anyone actually listens to this, write me hate mail, fan mail, dick pics.
We will frame them and put them on a part of a collage that we'll keep for ever and ever to reminisce about this time we did this.
Yeah.
So, but now the dog's be quiet, oddly enough.
Yeah, as soon as we don't have anything to talk about, it's silent. I think he just said, go, Derek, preach it.
Go.
Speak your mind.
Well, what we're trying to do, from my point of view here, is just, talk like human beings about politics, just kind of, how people used to talk. They'd get together at pubs or, libraries or even town squares. I know we're all on the internet now. But just talk about real life problems and how we can solve them ourselves without the aid of a corrupt Congress, because I feel like our Congress is kind of getting out there, kind of getting a little corrupted. But that's maybe
corrupted.
Yeah, maybe it's a little cynical. Maybe it's a bad place to start. But, basically the idea for me is, we can solve these problems on our own or
What
just
can
by
we really
talking
do?
about
Yeah,
them.
let's talk through these issues.
Let's talk through these issues and see what we can do, see what we come up with. If people listen and maybe these ideas catch fire, maybe we can push some people, in the White House and Congress to lean a different way.
Or just make change in our own communities, because I
That's
think
the
a
thing.
lot of it's building community and starting these grassroots discussions again, and not being afraid to talk about things that are sensitive, sometimes that you disagree with people that you even care about with, and you're afraid to bring up because you're afraid about hurting someone's feelings.
Yeah, you're right.
Or, being misunderstood, because but if you don't speak up and you don't speak your mind, all these issues are just going to continue to linger in the background.
Well, here's the thing that's happening today through the internet world. I sound like my grandfather.
These interwebs.
We get so anonymous where we can just insult people through the internet. And we have these ideas of a political discussion, and it's just name calling and just throwing insults at each other because you're in this weird safety of your own home. But you're really not adding to the solution. You're just kind of propping up your own idea and not really opening yourself up to other ideas. So Danny comes from a background that's a little more conservative than I. We'll just start there, kind of go into our backgrounds. I'm pretty much a liberal. I have a degree in film and video, a minor in business from Penn State University. I'm almost so liberal that you could consider me a Green Party member, almost. But I don't know, that's kind of my background. That's where I'll be coming from, and I'll try to represent those views where I can, even though I might not agree with all of them. You'll find that I'm kind of a moderate. I think Danny is too, but where do you come from, Danny?
Yeah, I also have a bachelor's degree, and it's in business and economics with an emphasis on marketing. And I do lean more conservatively, but specifically fiscally and socially, I'm a lot more liberal. But I really just try to keep an open mind. That's where I try to be. I live with my heart on my sleeve, but at the same time, I try to make sure I'm willing to listen to different perspectives and always realize that new information can change your viewpoint. And it's never good to just think you always know everything or that you know all the facts, because there's always another layer to the onion. So,
well, that's one thing I was thinking about on my drive over here, is just that I think you and I embrace an openness that we don't see, at least in, cable television today, and even a lot of media, where you're open to new ideas. It's kind of like you either have this idea or you have that idea. And I feel like there's a lot of young people out there, like our age. We're about 30, both of us, and 30 and younger. There's a lot of people still making up their mind on where
30 with the body of a 24-year-old.
Thank you, Danny. Yes, and I'm 30 with the body of a 40-year-old. Thanks to the whiskey. Oh, yeah. I mean, I love whiskey, especially Gentleman Jack. Please send us another bottle. But yeah,
or Jim Beam.
Hey, we're not picky, anybody. But I like whiskey. But yeah, there's so many people out there who think they have to form their opinion so quickly and be left or right. But
I think people are afraid to be wrong too.
That's the thing.
Speak your mind, and you can be passionate about it, but also realize that it's okay to sometimes be wrong, even if it's about everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wrong about a lot of things.
That's the
but
thing.
I'll still speak about issues.
I'm wrong about a lot of things too, and we're both gonna be wrong as we do this probably, and we're gonna try to fact check each other whenever we disagree.
And you'll realize that I have terrible grammar. I misspeak quite regularly.
I like to mumble and stutter. I'll try to fix that.
We're born and raised in Central Pennsylvania. Which, if you don't know where that is, that's in between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. It's the heartland of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, farm country.
Yeah, it's where we actually do things. We actually do work.
Yeah.
We do work out here.
Well, I lived in California for 6 years, and these people think it's work. But I tell you what, you go to the city, you work 50 hours a day doing computer stuff. Sarcasm. Bad sarcasm. But that's not insulting people in the city.
Spreadsheets. I have spreadsheets. I have a calendar I have to keep up to date.
No, I mean, everybody works hard everywhere, but people don't understand how hard blue-collar jobs are these days. That could be part of the problem that we might talk about later in one of these shows, is the gap between the haves and have-nots in the middle class, and
making things.
Yeah, making things again. I know we both had strong opinions on that. But I think this week we're going to kind of focus on what's happening in January. Some current events. We'll get into that. I know the big news that happened, we're taping this on the 22nd. This news happened, I think, on... Oh, I should know.
The beginning of the month.
Beginning of the month. Everyone knows about it. You'll know what we're talking about. Charlie Hebdo, or Hebdo, or Charlie Hebdo. How do you say that? Does anybody actually know?
Charlie Hebdo. Charlie Hebdo.
Charlie Hebdo says they shouldn't be painting those pictures of that, Islam guy.
I'm pretty sure it's French, right?
I think the French right now, if anybody in France heard us, are now sending us hateful comics.
I apologize. It's not funny to...
That's a good point. Danny brings up a good point. People died, so
we try to keep
it light. We didn't get into this fact. We're probably going to swear a few times, and we might be a little controversial.
But if you're offended, turn it the fuck off.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. Sorry, we got that out of the way. But yeah, that's going to happen. We're going to get passionate. We were discussing how, it's kind of weird that some people don't like to swear. You're saying, Danny, it's kind of a red flag to us.
Yeah, if you don't swear, what other skeletons are in your closet, really? Because if you're not willing to do that in public, what have you done?
What are you hiding?
Yeah,
you've thought about this too hard.
You have some dark secrets.
You've put this red flag up in your brain that says no one can know that I can swear. So what else do you have?
I won't swear because I murdered children on the weekends.
You got to even it up somehow.
But anyways, back to Charlie Hebdo, however you...
Forgive us, we're Americans.
That. But it's pretty shocking to see more of these instances popping up in Western culture.
I think, it's kind of a call to arms. It's a hard word to use, or maybe a bad word to use, but it gets everyone in the West kind of awake. Sometimes I feel, maybe this is just an American viewpoint, maybe it's not valid, but I just feel like, it's America's war with the West and the radical Islam. But now it's kind of intruded into France, and I think Belgium was part of it too. There were some people in Belgium over the border the other day.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, they did like a firestorm, it looked like, on the video.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they also had, stuff in Spain and England, but I just feel like now they're just going over all the countries of Europe and saying, hey, you're all part of what we're trying to do here.
And
So
I think you make an interesting point because it reiterates the fact that we're at war. I think sometimes we're so disconnected from it because you see it in the media. You see videos of things going on in the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, but nothing's happened here in a while.
that's true.
And I mean, there have been some other terrorist attacks in other parts of the world, but nothing like this where a journalist or a number of journalists were targeted for, satirical cartoons, kind of poking fun at, radical Islam. And but it kind of reminds us that we're at war right now. And
Well, here's the thing. It's definitely a war. And I know it comes from a side that's like, oh, don't call it a war. It's just a couple people. We shouldn't give them any credit. But it is a war. They're making it a war. They want a war. But I guess my thought is, do we want to give them that, satisfaction?
satisfaction of what
Recognizing them as, they are a legit threat, but I feel like we're almost playing into their game by being terrified by these acts. And they are terrifying acts. That's the hard thing I'm trying to reconcile. It's like, you don't want them to have this power, but they are attacking us and killing our civilians. But should we be able to disengage a few crazy people from an army of another country? Because these people don't have a country, right?
Well, I believe it came out that they were trained an Al-Qaeda faction based out of Yemen or the Arabian Peninsula of some sort. That was where they apparently were trained.
Now, is the Yemen government sponsoring it, or are they just there and being harbored?
I mean, I have no idea in terms of where the funding's coming from, who's supporting that part of the Al-Qaeda. And I'm not an expert on any of these subjects. This is just information that the internet.
This is how the internet works. Well, I guess that's my thing. It's I know there are governments that are allowing this to happen, but we still, or at least from my viewpoint and my understanding, and I could be wrong, and I probably need more information, there's no real government faction saying, this is our army, we're attacking you. It's just a bunch of crazy people that are allowed to do the dirty work for people who just turn the other way and pretend like it's not happening. Or they're secretly proud it's happening.
Well, that's an interesting point that you bring up the funding, because when you think about it, in a way, if you really follow the money and the dollars, some of the money is probably coming from the United States federal government, because we fund a lot of governments in that region of the world where these people are being trained and where this ideology really is centered right now. We give a tremendous amount of money to Saudi Arabia, and they're one of the most extreme versions of, they practice a lot of really extreme radical ideas.
But they give us oil, Danny.
There's that, but I don't know exactly who to point the finger to. But then you also look at things like the Boko Haram incident, and these things happen almost simultaneously.
Yeah.
In one instant, which they're different. Because in one instance you have some journalists being targeted, right?
Mm-hmm.
In France, a country that's engaged in these areas, but it's kind of removed. And in the other, you have an attack in, Central Africa. I don't know if you call it Central Africa. It's kind of in the hump in Nigeria, right?
Right. Yeah.
And in that case, you have, over a course of several days, hundreds of people invading territories and slaughtering thousands of innocent people, burning some alive, using machetes, guns. It's awful, but it's barely talked about at first.
See, that's the thing. It seems so much worse than what happened in France to me. And it's hard to put one thing over another, but I just get disturbed by the coverage of each event. 12 people got killed in France, which is awful, and they also attacked our freedom of speech, which is awful. We can talk about that a little bit more, but 2,000 people got slaughtered in a town in Africa, in Nigeria, in Kano. And, 3,000 people got killed just about in 9/11, and I'm not knocking 9/11, I'm just saying that had a huge impact on us.
He invaded a country because of that.
Yeah, 2,000 people, and I know it's not our country, but I feel like they're dying over the same reasons, and maybe some more attention should be paid to what's going on down there too. Not that it shouldn't be paid attention to in France, I just feel like for a while there it was getting swept under the rug, or just nobody cared because of maybe where it was, which I don't think is right.
Well, it went on for the interesting thing is, I mean, you looked at the attention, like you're saying, the Charlie Hebdo incident got. I mean, there were police forces trying to lock down those situations immediately. I mean, when
That's
we
true.
got pushed to Belgium and those safe houses, I forget there were some shootouts. I should be more read on what exactly happened, but I mean, in Boko Haram, this went over several days. This was just kind of happening without any government intervention or police intervention whatsoever. It was kind of run for your life and
It's
good
terrifying.
luck.
Yeah. That's the thing. That is a good point. We have blockades in the West that they don't have down there in Nigeria. Well, they do have. It's just they're having a problem getting their military to actually fight for them, which is a sad story. Apparently, Britain was down there trying to train their own forces and get them prepared for these kinds of attacks.
Oh, is that right?
But yeah, apparently, because there aren't a lot of jobs down there, people would join the military just to get a job, but they
Sure.
weren't actually interested in protecting their country, so they just kind of ran and let this city get overrun. But it makes you, appreciate what you got here and appreciate more of the established world that we have in the West. But I don't know, part of me, the bleeding part of me, just like, I wish we could do more, or I wish we could pay more attention, or I wish we could send troops down there to stop them there, because I don't want them to get a stronger hold in another country in Africa, even though it might be a country without too many, resources. But you still aren't seeing this faction spread, you know what I mean? And I feel like in Africa,
What do you mean when you say? I don't follow you exactly.
I like the Boko Haram.
Mm-hmm.
They're Islamic, backed, and so they're killing people basically for religious reasons. So when I see them taking over a town in Nigeria, I get worried that this kind of jihad, if you will,
It's going to spread to
it's
other
just going to
countries
spread to other
like Chad
countries.
and-
Yeah, it's just going to, if it's not stopped there, but it's also being spread into Europe, and they're kind of like a little splinter grenade. You got little splinter cells here, splinter cells there.
Well, I guess the interesting thing is, and I think this is part of a big piece of this, is the media in the United States has skewed and used some really broad brushes in a general sense of describing the conflicts that are going on in a lot of these regions, because I think it's a lot more complicated than what the version we get. We're like, oh, it's extreme Islam, it's these Muslim terrorists, whatever, da 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 da. But I mean, the terrorist cells that are coming from Yemen aren't the same necessarily terrorist cells that are coming from parts of Africa. Like, yes, they might both practice Islam.
Mhm.
They might
That's true.
be Muslim,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean they're necessarily all interrelated.
They're probably not. You make a good point. They're probably not. It's just, I guess for me, it's the idea that's spreading that scares me. And it's a touchy subject, and this can be said about all religions. So there's something to be said about atheism and certain faiths, but I don't like bad ideas spreading. I think that's what it is. When you have a bad idea.
I agree completely. There's some certain aspects of that religion which seem like just bad ideas, right?
Yeah. And it's just like, if this is spreading, we need to find a way to stop it. And I know we kind of turn a blind eye to all the shit that's happening in Africa because it's always so terrible. Every time we look in Africa, it's something terrible, it seems. But I think it's important to at least pay attention. And I was kind of insulted and disturbed, like I said, that it took a while for them to start reporting this story.
Yeah, because it was like the world. It wasn't even just the media. It was literally like all those world leaders came to Paris, and it was a good message, right?
Yeah.
It was a good message to say like, oh, we're not going to stand for this. But at the same time, 2,000 people got slaughtered in Africa, and all the world leaders are meeting for 11. Was it 11 people that got? I don't even remember.
I think it was 12.
12 people that got
Yeah.
eventually died. I mean, that's awful. I'm not trying to
Yeah, I think we both agree that that's awful and we don't want that to happen.
minimize that.
And we
but-
need to memorialize them. But there's other stuff going on in the world too that we should be paying attention to. Sometimes we overlook. I think that's our point there. But
Yeah, and the media kind of spins and focuses your attention on certain subjects.
well, I
It
think
seems like that's what
the issue I
happens.
guess we were dancing around that I'm now getting to is that media after that event seemed to just spin it so much to get us all freaked out because it could happen here. We already know it can happen here. It has happened here. It's probably going to happen here again. And I just don't like this whole culture of fear that I always see when I turn on these news stories. That's why I was saying earlier about, kind of playing into the terrorist game plan where they do these things and then you're scared. I kind of want to get to a place where this shit happens and we're just like, oh, 4 crazy guys killed 12 people. Not 4 Islamic terrorists did this. I just want to be like, yeah, 4 mentally ill people killed people.
Yeah, these people were obviously not mentally healthy if they're willing to do
Yeah.
these types of things.
It's not like I don't want to give power to their regime or what they're trying to do. I just want to be like, yeah, these mentally ill people are killing people. That sucks. We should memorialize the dead. we should live our lives. Like, that's how we beat them, I feel.
Right.
But
I guess I sometimes think about this whole situation, and I don't think any of these attacks are justified, because I think there's certain rules of engagement. I think there should be anyways. I don't have a military background, so I probably don't really have any.
We're looking for military people to come on board.
Yeah,
okay.
Anyone who wants to ever be as an expert in any field that could add some flavor to this discussion, we'd love to have a discussion with you. So feel free to contact us. Our email and contact information we'll have connected to this somehow or another.
Yeah.
But anyways, where I was going with that is you look at what's going on right now in the Middle East and how we're engaging people over there. And we're using these drone attacks with Hellfire missiles where an enormous number of civilian casualties are taking place. I mean, we're killing there's a lot of innocent blood on the Western world's hands. So then we say, like, we cry foul, and I'm not saying that these things are justified, but we cry foul when these go to extreme measures to strike us in our home soil and make us feel threatened, even though we're in some of these regions where we're blowing the shit out of their entire countries. We're destroying their infrastructures.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like we're leaving them with nothing, and we're killing all these innocent people, and then they pick up arms to fight us too. And it's like, sometimes I just wonder, are we to blame for some of this? I mean, do we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and go, maybe some of the ways that we're engaging these countries aren't being effective, and we have to change the way we're doing this?
Well, we're perpetuating the whole problem sometimes when we go over there and just blow stuff up. I know it's, a safer approach than putting boots on the ground, and nobody wants that, but when you start blowing up schools and hospitals, even if it is by accident, or if terrorists are hiding stuff in those schools and hospitals, people are going to get pissed off, and it's just going to perpetuate the idea that America is the great Satan.
Right. I mean, would you think about if someone had a little drone helicopter right here, and as we were talking about this, they were pissed off about us talking about these things? They just throw a fucking grenade through the window and blow us up? Like, that'd be really fucked up.
Okay, if that happens, Danny called it. But no, that would be absolutely fucked up.
But that's not happening here.
No.
So, I mean, they talk about drone attacks all the time in the media, and people are kind of numb to it now. There's like, oh yeah, drone attacks. Oh, that new.
Well, I mean, they see it as like a video game almost. Maybe that's oversimplifying it, but you send a drone over there and take care of business, but that's not exactly what's happening all the time. Mistakes are being made, and mistakes will be made.
What is it, 174,000 civilians that are confirmed, I believe? Well, that was like back in April of 2014. I mean, and that's confirmed. I've read in certain areas or certain places, it's over 1 million in Iraq alone, not even including Afghanistan and Pakistan. So, but regardless, these are huge numbers. There are a lot of people that are dying in these conflicts. And, when we first engaged over there, it was weapons of mass destruction, and then it became this radical Islam. I mean, it was all because of terrorism, they said, because of September 11th. But we were going over there for these weapons of mass destructions and this, that, and the other thing. And like you said, it seems like it's splintering now, that we've started this fire that's kind of spreading.
That's the thing that scares me most, is that we're allowing it to spread, and we're kind of spreading it ourselves. I mean, it's one of those things. This is a good thing, I think, to talk about, is like, what do you want to do? I mean, you obviously, when people get killed, I think most of America's reaction is we need to kill the bad guys. Is that detrimental to the long-term success of, changing? Not just, we're not battling like an army, we're battling ideas.
And we're trying to build countries here.
But what we're doing is responding in a way that's so, I want to say, historic. Like, where you just go, if you're at war with England, you go over and bomb London, and they'd give up because you were trying to take over England or whatever. Now, you can't just blow up radical Islam. It's going to be somewhere. You have to...
Well, you just make more martyrs, right?
That's the thing. You're kind of like, that's the catch-22 here.
Don't they really believe in eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? Like, if you take one of them out, it's really like, I'm going to come after you now, which, I mean, a lot... In a lot of Western religions, it's kind of, there's similar verses for similar concepts. We don't practice it like literally like that, but to a degree we do. I mean, they came over here and attacked us on September 11th, and we said, fuck you, we're coming over, bombs a-blazing, and we've been trailblazing for over 10 years now.
Well, see, now, you're right, that's how we react, and now I get into a weird gray area in a spiritual sense, because my background's Christian for everybody that's listening.
I'm a Unitarian Universalist,
yeah.
So you can all boo me right now. Stones
well, I'm actually more of a Universalist myself now, I think, too. We might have something in common there. But the point is,
We have something in common.
Oh my God, we've had so much in common already. We need to fight more.
Yeah.
Get more whiskey in us.
Sucking each other off.
Back to sucking.
We're gonna have to edit that out now,
Damn it. Oh man.
Mark down the minute.
As it was getting too serious, we had to go back to sucking it off.
32.
We're talking about Christianity and then go straight to sucking it off.
Jesus. Sucking dick.
Yeah, well, it's just like, that whole retaliation thing is so not preached. At least it's one of those things I have a hard time reconciling as a human being, trying to figure out what the hell's going on in the world. But the turn the other cheek thing, that seems to be good advice by that guy that we all worship, literally. But we don't practice it.
Pretty popular.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty popular guy.
Well, that point, exactly. I think the point you're making is if we would choose a different way of engaging these, if we just drop care packages, it's all right, we're going to spend X amount of dollars. We have been spending X amount of dollars blowing people up and killing them. Now we're going to take that same amount of money and we're going to drop care packages filled with boy band music, streaming.
Well, then they would blow you. They get pissed off.
Streaming videos of the NFL and everything that we love, free bottles of Coca-Cola, all that stuff. I feel like people would be like, "This is awesome. Why? What are we doing?"
The real hardcore folks would be like, "The devil is raining on us," but a lot of people are like, "Shut up, dude. This is pretty sweet."
They gave me another free iPad.
Have you tried Coke?
You broke all of our iPads last week. Well, they brought more this week. All right, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. The one thing I think to add to that is maybe we should be building schools for these people. Because
that's what we say we're doing.
Yeah.
We say that. Don't we say that? You see that all the time.
You see that. I just don't know if it's happening or
I don't think it is.
Or where the money's going to. And then you got the whole thing of bad government leaders. We can go back to the government supporting these sects where we give those governments money and then the bad dictator in charge just keeps all of that instead.
Well, in a lot of those regions, they don't think of themselves as countries as we think of ourselves as the United States, and then we have states and territories within the United States. They don't. A lot of it's nomadic. They don't.
They're just out there.
They don't operate the same way we do. Not even just nomadic, but they're, what's the word I'm looking for? They're tribal.
Tribal. That's it. Yeah.
They're not. They don't have centralized governments like we think of governments.
Yeah.
There's different sects that operate amongst themselves, and they interact and have been warring with each other for thousands of years.
Well, that's the thing. They can't even get themselves over there together. At least at one point in time. I know we squabble now, but we all came together, for our independence. They can't get their story straight over there, and that's why it almost seems like a waste to spend our time and money over there.
Well, it's a civil war. It seems like that's what's kind of been going on for a while over there. Civil war.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can really.
But then again, they still come after us, those bastards.
Yeah. Well, how many countries are we engaged in right now?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I did a little research on that, and you look at, you get different answers from all over the place, but some websites that I've read said that we're engaging in over 74 countries right now through different operations and, what's the word I'm thinking of? Mercenaries.
Okay.
We use a lot of mercenaries and contracted, employees through the government, so they're not necessarily, I'm not a Marine, I'm not in the Army, I'm not in the Navy, I'm not in the Air Force. These mercenaries that once were, but technically aren't even on the books as military personnel, that we're engaging a lot of people in lots of different parts of the world.
Yeah. It's overwhelming. That's the thing. It looks like there's 195 countries in the world today. So we're in 75 of them, 74 of them.
I don't know if that's confirmed.
Yeah, it sounds familiar to me, to be honest, but I wanted to look up that stat. By the way, we have our computers in front of us. We'll occasionally look up things and try to get better information here. That's why it's called Whisky and Wi-Fi.
Yeah, as we're drinking, you can tell I'm like, what's the word? Mercenary. Mercenary, that's tribal. I would like to point out that I am disabled.
Danny.
I have a tiny baby arm that doesn't function.
That's not funny. That's not funny, Danny.
It's not funny.
I have a tiny baby dick. We don't talk about those things.
Hey, I'm sure there's a girl out there with a tiny baby vagina that's the perfect size for you.
Oh, that's a sweet thought, Danny.
You're like,
thank you.
Derek really put on a big smile after I said that. But I do suffer from dyslexia. If anyone else out there has dyslexia, I'm not making that up. So I am disabled to a degree. I struggle to speak complete sentences and complete thoughts. So bear with me. And hopefully we will have some guests on the show eventually.
That's what we need. We need people to help us out here. We're about 30 minutes in, and we're doing what we call a top up, half halftime top up. Let's call it that. This is the first. We're gonna have segment music for this. Halftime top up. Da-da-dum. So that was a pretty good discussion we had there for our first topic of the show. What do you think, Danny?
I mean,
Did I cut you off, or are you still going?
No, it went pretty well.
Okay.
Need to stay, I guess, a little bit more on point. And
No, I mean, we're going to go on and off point. I think we're just going to let this free flow. We want to go places. We don't want to just stick within the narrative that you get everywhere else. So if we go off on tangents, we hope that we have information to back up our ideas, but we want to take you in new and exciting places that you might not have gone before and might not go through other sources, because
if you want to, you can just rub your junk against your subwoofer as we play this.
Yeah.
We'll try to give you some bass.
I have a deep voice. The whiskey helps. I don't even like my voice is cracking. I'm barely a man.
We want people to take this seriously. Like, oh, maybe at some point we get Tom Wolfe to come on this. Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, we could drink whiskey and talk about sucking cocks with him.
Interesting that you bring up Tom Wolfe. I was at the inauguration on Monday. Well, I work in Harrisburg now.
I think my mom volunteered at that too.
It wasn't filled. I don't know if people know that. I mean, some of the seats were empty.
Wasn't there some construction going on and stuff?
There was some construction. I mean, it's not a bad sign. I was surprised that I was able to get in.
Was it a gross day too?
It was very gross.
And
very
it was outside,
gross.
right?
Cold,
So it's kinda
rainy.
Like,
But it was very nice to see. There was some band fracking people outside. I took a walk through them.
Band fracking. That would be a good topic.
That would be a good topic. We don't have that on the docket now, but if you're interested in it, listening to it in another episode.
Actually, no one's gonna fucking reach out to us, Derek. Let's just put it
Danny,
down on the docket.
Danny, we are pretending like we are far ahead in the game. This is how we will have to talk.
You're acting like no one's listening.
This is how we will talk during episode 6 when we have 3 listeners.
Derek's delusional.
Yes, I am.
He's delusional.
All right.
Oh, am I chewing in the microphone there? Is that what you're signaling me for? Sorry.
Oh, we're still learning this whole radio thing.
Sorry. I need to buy a pizza. The whiskey's starting to kick in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take periodic breaks to either shit our pants or get, pizza. I shit my pants when I drink whiskey. How about you?
All right, we're going to change your name to Vodka and Wi-Fi. Do you shit your pants when you drink vodka?
I think it's without the alcohol. I think it's just a natural reaction.
Weed and Wi-Fi.
That's a whole different show that we do on weekends. Look us up. And that's more incoherent than this, I can tell you that.
Hey, dude.
It's more of a...
man.
It's more of a...
Hey,
Dude, did you hear that?
What? Hey, man, someone at the door, man.
What if the sun... What if the sun...
I can hear the sun.
Didn't go?
I hear...
You know how it goes? It totally goes, man.
It comes back every fucking day, man. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, it doesn't stop.
All right, we're going to stop with that, but you get the idea.
Yeah, so now we got off topic here, but the one thing I did want to hit on before we moved on...
We're just going to keep going. It's like 20 minutes later.
We're just going to sprinkle that in so people don't understand. We're just going to, hey, man.
Hey, man.
We're trying to get sound bites for future shows on the show.
We're not going to have other guests, but we're going to do voices as other people, so it seems like we have a guest. Oh, we got Billy here. Who has a medical marijuana license. Hey, guys, thanks for having me.
You know what? That could actually be fun until we get real guests.
And then we dress up as women and act like women.
No one's going to see that. Do you just want to dress up like a woman?
No, but in high school we did that for a few projects, and we got A+ on those projects.
I remember those projects.
So maybe if we dress up, we speak in women's voices.
Kids, if you're listening, the key to an A is dress like a woman.
But make sure you shave your legs if you're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take it seriously.
And your balls.
Did you know there was a transgender person? I need to look this up. It just came to me because we were talking about they were put into office somewhere for the first time.
Really?
I feel like it was in Europe. We'll get that information for you next episode.
Yeah, it'll be a follow-up after this podcast.
Or check below. If you're watching this on YouTube,
special edition.
I'll make a little
YouTube
blurb.
video.
You can click the link that'll pop up or something. But I wanted to talk more about the Charlie Hebdo.
Let's get back to it.
I'm going to talk about the freedom of expression thing that seems to be under attack. How did you feel about them coming back and putting the Prophet Muhammad on the cover? Did you know that?
I did see that.
Okay. I'm just curious your thoughts. I'll say mine.
What, that they were kind of rubbing like, hey, we're not going to stop.
Yeah,
I appreciated that.
I loved it.
I think that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the same thing with the The Interview, is that the name of that movie, that stupid movie that came out?
Yeah,
Where
The Interview.
Eventually, still, they put it on YouTube for free, I think, for a little while. And we're like,
Right.
no, everyone should just see this. Kind of same idea. It's like, we're not going to back down. Freedom of speech is extremely important. It's like what we're doing right now. Derek and I do not agree on everything. Right now, we kind of agree on some of these topics because I think a lot of people would agree on a lot of these topics.
I think these are topics people want to talk about and find some agreement on. Now, we'll talk about other stuff.
It gets spun. There's so much rhetoric, which is part of why we're doing this, is so you can just actually focus on the points that a lot of people agree on. Because if you agree on like 90% of it, why don't we focus on that?
Yeah.
And then we can work on that 10%, but focus on what we do agree on, and let's work there rather than focusing on the little bits that we don't agree on.
Well, that's what will happen. These politicians and these spin artists will make you focus on the 10% and make you think you're worlds apart. So one party can favor one thing and one party can favor the other. That's how I feel anyway. But really, the consensus is we should be doing most of this, but there's gridlock sometimes because, I don't know, they just can't agree on that 10%, which seems ludicrous.
Right.
You know.
But luckily, we live in America and we have freedom of speech, which is the right that we have to defend, which is scary because I think to a degree it's under attack in this country in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that country was physically under assault. I mean, people tried to murder, or they did, they successfully murdered people for speaking their mind. Awful, terrible. And I'm really proud of the fact that they said, no, this is who we are, and we're going to continue to do what we believe in. We're going to poke fun at things that are worth laughing at and are ridiculous and are, like you said, bad ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But like in this country, you look at the number of journalists that are, being brought to court because they have witnesses or, I guess, sources that they're not willing to give up, and they're trying to push stories that certain people don't want getting exposed. And to a degree, I think journalism and freedom of expression in this country is under attack in a different way, where stuff that's extreme or sensitive, maybe that's a better word.
There was an article on RT News. I know it's technically funded by Russia, but the news was still about the Edward Snowden leaks. You talked about journalism being under attack. It was disclosed that European journalists were being watched by the government, which I thought was horribly
wiretapped and everything, right?
Horribly terrible for freedom of, like the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, that whole thing. And that's why I got mad at Sony. Going back to the interview,
that they were going to pull it.
They
well,
were
they did,
such
I guess,
pussies.
Right?
Like I can just say this because I'm 3 whiskeys deep now and fuck them. You were pussies with Sony. Like I know you're not going to hear this, but that was totally weak ass shit. I know it was probably your distributor's fault. Well, you should have at least put the pressure on them.
In their defense, Sony is based out of Japan, and they are physically a lot closer to North Korea.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, like, the threat of them actually getting hurt was probably a lot higher than, like, all of us here in America. Like, come on, show us this movie.
That's a valid point. I like that you brought that up. But Sony...
I'm not saying... They are pussies. I agree with Derek. They are pussies.
Sony America still should have been like, they'll listen to their bosses. Be like, okay,
because
we'll
they ended up doing it anyway.
But they should have just been like... They should have faked it. Should have been like, America doesn't do this and blah, 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 blah. But Sony upstairs says we can't do it. But they're just like, we're scared. We're going to pull it.
But then you also wonder, was it just a really bad publicity stunt that was awful and is playing games that we should not be playing? I mean, that's... Is it time for Conspiracy Corner?
Oh, it might be time for Conspiracy Corner. Oh, we got about... I would guess we have about 10 minutes left in our first episode here. What we're going to do, let's talk. That was a good segue. Let's go with it. Okay, bam. Ooh, fist bump. This is more audible.
Okay.
I want them to hear it.
Did you hear that? Did you feel it? For those listeners that have their balls against their subwoofer, probably.
Balls and subwoofers.
We also have another podcast where we do breathe just heavy into
30 minutes of this. I sound like a smoker with lung disease.
You're smoking yet?
Okay, so back to Conspiracy Corner, everybody. That was Wayne's World, but I like it. Let's talk about our theories on conspiracies before we bring out one. This is what this segment's about to me, and we'll see if Danny has anything to add. It's funny. We know that there are crazy people out there saying crazy things.
I'm crazy.
I'm certified. So what we have out there are indications of misdoings by government officials sometimes. And sometimes they seem out there.
You're talking about like Anthony Weiner?
Yeah. Doing things they shouldn't be doing. And we all scoff at it and like, it might be... And then like 4 days later, something turns out to be true. Now, we're not saying what we're going to share with you is true, but we kind of want to talk about it, engage you on things outside your scope.
And also, like, touching on that, I think sometimes it's interesting because a lot of times, and I love a good conspiracy theory. Don't get me wrong. I love reading fringe stories that are like, ooh.
I spent a lot of time on the weird spaces in YouTube.
We just thought everyone's all credibility.
Come back!
Like, really, this is all you guys want to talk about, right? But that sometimes it seems like little bits could be very believable, but it just goes a little too far. So then it all gets thrown out. Because it gets labeled conspiracy, it's like, oh, everyone's like, forget that. Don't even give it any attention.
You gotta be careful when you go into this realm. But
we're gonna go there.
We're gonna go there. The thing that always keeps me interested in it is things like Watergate. Like, that shit happened in our history.
Yeah, right?
And JFK's time,
shit. And what, we're supposed to believe it stopped happening?
Yeah, that's the thing.
No, there's no...
Operation Northwoods during JFK's time.
Right.
About the false flag operations. For people who don't know about that, JFK was presented some options to...
Luckily, he said no.
Yeah, he said no. And then someone along the line unclassified it, or declassified it would be the word. So now
the
we know...
Joint Chief of Staff signed off on those ideas, though.
Yeah.
And I think some of it was bringing down commercial airliners, lots of false flag events to try to engage with Cuba, right? It was trying to really start a war with Cuba.
And these were documents released by, the Library of Congress.
Yeah,
like, these are there.
legit.
The Freedom of Information Act.
A lot of people, though, you bring that up and they go, oh.
People don't want to hear about it, which I understand. And that's not what this show's about, but we want to touch on some weird things every week just to keep you out of your scope of reality and out of your comfort zone a little bit.
There'll probably be episodes where we focus more.
Well, when we get,
Five whiskeys.
middle of summer and nothing's happening in politics, we won't have another Ferguson to talk
We're
about.
sick of actually just jerking each other off.
Yeah, that gets tiresome. I have a
Hands start to crack.
weak wrist,
I don't use enough lotion.
What we have this week,
Sorry,
every time we try to dive into something creepy and weird and serious or whatever,
Danny's
just like, I gotta talk about my penis.
Gotta talk about dicks again.
But that's okay. We both had our awkward moments
Yeah,
here today. That's what the show's about. Awkward people sharing awkward thoughts.
By
and
episode
awkward
10, I will be talking a lot less about phalluses.
I hope not. That's what the show's about, Danny.
Episode 10 is all about phalluses, isn't it?
It's going to be about the porn industry.
Be like, oh, I lied. Episode 10's all.
We lied. It's all about penises. Sorry to lead you down that path.
But anyways, back to our conspiracy. What'd you have for us this week?
What I found, which was fairly interesting, is that an actual senator and presidential candidate, Ron Paul, put on his website that there are people who think...
Careful now.
Yes.
Careful now.
That is I gotta be careful. There are people who think that the Charlie Hebdo thing was a false flag. Here's their background. They were worried that since France has been supporting somewhat of the Palestinians in that whole Palestinian-Israel conflict, that...
If you're not aware of what's going on,
Right.
Israel and
Palestine that whole thing, come on.
put themselves up for a while now.
If you're not paying attention to that...
Google it.
You should be Googling it, and yeah.
What you know what to do.
It's been happening. So people are saying, like, oh, America sent these people over there to punish France and send a message and start this terrorism thing and keep our perpetual war with the terrorists going.
Keep Halliburton
pumping, keep the fear-mongering going, that whole thing.
But Derek, they provide good American jobs for good, hard-working American tax-paying citizens.
Yeah, but we could be using that engineering for, like, going to space or something, right?
Space? Boy, you got your head in the clouds.
I want, like, those freaking hyperloops that they're talking about.
Literally, head in the clouds. Space is for the devil, boy.
Well, couldn't we be using all that money for engineering? Couldn't we be using all that money for something better?
We engineer these rockets, but we design rockets that blow people up rather than take us to the moon so we can bring back, we can fragments of an asteroid that's made out of diamonds and make everyone a diamond ring that you don't have to pay for. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous idea.
Find some, like, life-altering technology through these new elements or something.
Fusion power. Lockheed Martin's like, oh, we're going to have it in 10 years. I want it next month.
Yeah, you could do that. But anyway, how do you feel about the false flag theory in general? We kind of touched on that. Not necessarily this false flag idea.
False flags in general, I've read some of those declassified documents as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a number of other examples. So I know it seems very evident that they happen. And you'd think, we've been using propaganda since probably humans started communicating, right? Figuring out ways to manipulate, lie, and get people to do what we want with false information, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that one particularly, I haven't read a lot about that. I saw, I think, a headline that mentioned that, and I was kind of like, really? Like, come on. But
The thing that interests me is that Ron Paul is the one posting it on his website. I actually like
Ron Paul too. Yeah, so it's surprising that he would go there. But
the thing is, I wouldn't vote for Ron Paul, but when he talks about war and kind of, what is it called, when you close yourself off from the rest of the world.
Isolationism?
Isolationism. He kind of has that tone to him. I know we can talk about that much later, but I kind of like that side of him. Like, okay, we don't need to be in all these wars. We don't need to be doing this, and people should have personal freedoms. But then when he comes out and says this, I'm just like, damn it, dude.
You're throwing me a curveball here.
Like, I see where he's coming from, and the questions it does raise, could America do this? And, of course, I think they could. Did they? I don't think they did in this case, personally. But...
Well, I think before we started, you were mentioning how you thought he was kind of putting out there as an idea, like, what do you think about this as well?
Yeah.
But we were wondering, well, is he just kind of putting his toe in the water, like, hey, this is how I think. How am I going to get it? What kind of response am I going to get?
This is how I might feel.
Yeah. What do you think?
Can I feel this way, please? So I would love to run with it.
But I also love conspiracy theories, and I like reading fringe stuff and just alternative perspectives, because I think we get too much of the cookie cutter, hey, 100 people have looked over this and polished it up because this is the way they want it to be presented to us. So I sometimes question, kind of wonder, well, there are a lot of companies, I mean, I don't know if I agree with this example, but there are a lot of companies that make a ton of money based on war. And the military-industrial complex is a real thing. And people have warned us about this. I mean, was it President Eisenhower?
Reagan, I thought even mentioned.
I think President Eisenhower.
Maybe it was Eisenhower.
Eisenhower warned us about this.
I hope I'm not wrong about the Reagan thing. People will kill me for that.
Reagan I think there have been multiple leaders who've talked about that.
Yeah.
But there are people making huge sums of money, and you look at the way money controls things in this world and how much money is power.
Yeah.
And so if you want to continue to have wars, you need to continue to disrupt the peace. And in order to continue to disrupt the peace, there have to be
events.
Yeah, there has to be friction.
Yeah.
So if everything's going really, really well and everyone's peace-loving, and those revenue streams for those companies are going to dry up pretty quickly, and they're going to have to develop technologies that will actually create space programs and do this, that, and the other thing. But they're going to have to change. So you wonder, like, who is?
No, there's definitely that aspect to it, and I come from the whole 99% Occupy thing from. Well, now, oh my God, 2015.
Is that still going? Is that still?
It holds on. Oh, that's a good thing. I kind of wanted to bring this up in this first episode.
Another good segue.
I still follow it on Facebook, but the people who manage the Facebook page are anti-Semitic, and I hate it. Like, what happened here?
Really?
Yeah, there was a fringe segment of Occupy Wall Street that was very anarchist. Banking, the whole Israel-Palestine thing, they feel like Israel wasn't getting enough blame, and then it turned into,
But why is that? Because it wasn't Occupy, against the whole 99, it's like the 99%. I don't get the connection there unless they're like, all the bankers are Jewish, and it's like, that's ridiculous.
Here's the thing, there was a segment in there that just got completely crazy. I mean, just to put in some words, there's crazy people in that segment, just as I feel there's crazy people in the Tea Party segment when that thing happened. They all happened around the same time.
There's crazy people in every segment.
That's true.
Come on, like, there aren't crazy, like, really, really liberal people that are like, and you're like, whoa, pump the brakes here, bud.
Yeah. Well, there's some people specifically that were anarchists, which I've never been a big fan of. Just because, because they're the violent kind of anarchists. They're just like, yeah, I'm going to kill everybody. I don't
think there's a peaceful kind of anarchist.
Well, there's some people who think they are.
There's peaceful anarchy, because if you're talking about anarchy, I mean, I think that's an environment where the strong survive, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure the weak ones like me get trampled pretty quickly.
That's why we hate anarchy, because we would not survive.
Yeah, it's the same reason I don't want to go to prison.
Yeah.
Because it seems like the prison system is basically anarchy. I mean, you're locked in a cell or a system where it's not all animals, but there's a lot of things that go on that, I mean, I feel pretty safe walking down the street. I'm not going to get raped, but I read that you get raped pretty regularly in prison. And if we lived in,
I don't mean to laugh because it actually happens, but the way.
But if we live in an anarchist society, I could be the guy that's held down and raped a lot. Like, I'm not very big, so people could hold me down and rape me. Men, women, probably some children that are, developed a little bit early, and
that's what happens.
So
it is scary.
Go to anarchy. I like the little law and order and some rules.
Good.
Some organization.
I guess I'll leave it at back to industrial
Military-industrial complex.
Military-industrial complex. Yeah, whiskey. Woo!
By the way, Gentleman Jack going down smooth.
Going down real smooth. Occupy was big on that, and I brought my attention to it, and I definitely appreciate some of the connections they made to some things. I just want to say it gets bad rap, some of it, the Occupy movement, because of those fringe people. But there's a lot to be...
I wasn't aware of that at all, that they had an anti-Semitic aspect. That's crazy.
When you do the web searches and surfing that I do, you get that kind of hatred toward the movement. And sometimes people in the movement...
Facebook page, though, has that type of message on it?
That's the thing. I don't know if I'm following the right Facebook page, but I've seen some...
You're at the 99% white.
Yeah. I should have seen it. It was completely in the title.
99% Aryan. That's not...
I should have known. Well, but the point is... I think that quote-unquote conspiracy theory, which it's not, is, something we all should worry about. And then there's other ones out there like it. People need to work, and some people work in war. It's scary.
Yeah, well, exactly. And, I mean, if you look at history, these things have happened before, so to be ignorant enough to think that they couldn't happen again or they're not happening now, like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the thing that bugs me the most, is there's nothing really new in society anymore, in our day and age.
What do you mean by anything new?
Everything's happened before. It seems that way anyway. So when you see that something's happened in the past, especially even in American history, Watergate, these red flag things, medical, I keep saying medical, military-industrial complex.
Excuse me.
Concerns.
Yes, military-industrial complex.
And people trying to cover up things and people trying to take people out.
Lying, manipulating.
Yeah, that's all happened before, and we kind of, I think, especially our generation, because we haven't lived in a wartime.
Yes, we have. This is the longest war we've ever been.
That's a good point. It doesn't feel like a wartime, and that's weird.
That's because we're so numb to it.
Yeah.
Because it's like.
That's a big problem too.
Well, it's like that thing we were talking about with drones, where you just hear drone, and you're like, oh, a drone. Oh, a drone sounds pretty cool. I might actually buy a drone that doesn't have a Hellfire missile attached to it. It has a GoPro, and it's really cool. I'm like, oh, drones can deliver your Amazon package. You're like, yay, drones. You're like, oh, drones.
Or they can kill you.
Oh, drones killed 150 people at a wedding party this weekend. But you just hear all those together. You're just like, ah.
Well, they brought me pizza.
Yeah, and it just kind of gets whitewashed. And not that people don't see it it's like that, but. Yeah, we don't. A lot of people don't realize, like, we are in the longest conflict, and we spent more money in this conflict than any other conflict too.
Yeah.
We've been in war for and before that, we also had the Gulf War in the '90s. For a lot of our.
That's true.
We've been at war.
Maybe
for a
it's
while.
just the. Now I sound like a grandfather again, but maybe it's just like the television/digital age where we are physically and mentally separated from the realities around us. Like, I don't know how we obviously didn't live when there wasn't this technology, but we go on a computer screen and it's like, oh, it's there, but it's not here.
We're desensitized.
Yeah.
All around it. Look at how many movies come out. You have those people that say, oh, all these kids are going to schools and killing people because of video games and stuff. I don't think it's that. Our government's very violent. Our culture's very violent. Statistically, I guess they say it's safer now to be in this country than any time before. Like, there's a lot less violence now than before. I've read that. I don't know if that's true. You can fact check that and tell me how wrong I am.
Please fact check all of this.
Yeah. Don't believe anything we're saying.
And we will come back and, make up for our errors.
We'll try by drinking more next time.
Yeah, we'll drink more next time.
But, I don't know exactly where I was going with that.
And that's a good spot to end it. I think we did our full 46 minutes probably, even with the interruptions.
Now we can finally release.
We can finally release. How's it been? My hands are sweaty.
Bleeding. Mine are bleeding.
Yours, oh man, you gotta use that lotion. I told you. Well, before I leave, I just want to tell you.
Sorry.
I want to tell you to comment and subscribe, pretending that you're actually listening, because I'm pretending like this will one day reach the ears of other people.
This might be in the black files.
We'll see. We'll have to
I don't mean black files. That didn't come out.
You racist prick.
Why would it
you ignorant slut.
In the X-rated files? I think that's what I was thinking.
Ooh, X-rated. No, I'll check it out more often.
This is before they were polished. They knew what they were doing. This is before they learned their ABCs.
Now I'm drunk. Now they can walk upright all by themselves.
He can feed himself.
Look at him go. Well, this is Derek Faree, and saying, or at least I'm saying, let's change it. It starts in our living rooms, and maybe it starts with a drink.
Print it.
Print it.